Hello and Happy New Year to everyone. We want to welcome you to our first webinar session of the year. We are excited to have Steve Waltz from Innovia Consulting joining us today, and he will be presenting on 20 tips to crush your sales plan. And before I pass it over to Steve, I would like to remind you that we are recording this session and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please go ahead and type those into the questions box and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Steve to kick off our presentation.
Thanks, Angie. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy day for our webinar, 20 Tips to Crush Your Sales Plan in 2020. And I did something similar to this last year. I did a webinar in January called 60 Tips in 30 minutes. It was more of a rapid fire type of presentation. And some of the feedback I got from our customers, from other members of my team and other people that I talked with said, you know what? It was a very interesting webinar. It was more of a, high level things that you can do. And, at the end of every year, you have to take a step back and look at what you did in the previous year. Half of the salespeople didn't hit their number or their quota. And it's even a bigger number for sales managers. And, the goal is that, okay, that year's is behind us now, but we want to move forward into the next year and really start it on a good note. So I decided to do this 20 tips to crush your sales plan, more so to help give you a plan and kind of set the year on a good note. So a little bit about myself. Some of you have been on some of my webinars or been to my presentations, and for those that are live, there'll be question and answer time at the end. For those that are listening through our website or through our YouTube channel, we welcome you, and my contact information is here. Please feel free to reach out with a question. So my background is over 30 plus years in the great field of sales and marketing. I pretty much have done quite a bit of different roles. I've worked in the automobile industry for a few years. I worked for a large healthcare Fortune 50 pharma company for almost 25, where I retired, and then did some consulting, and I've been here at Innovia for about 4.5 years on the customer engagement team. Loving every minute of it. In those roles, I've done many different things, and the one thing I'm probably the most proud of is carrying the bag and being a peddler, being a salesperson, where the rubber hits the road. And other roles that I've done within the my career has been as far as involved with account management, sales training, cross-functional team, new product launches, sales coaching, and really working with different members of the organizations just to really help improve the customer experience and to increase sales. So that's a little bit about myself. And so I kind of have one goal for the agenda here. And I love this slide because sales is about getting people to change. And everybody loves to change, right? Just being a little smarty there. But most people will fight change to the death, right? And this picture here, right? The government candidate said, hey, who wants to change? Everybody's like, yes. Who wants to change? Oh no, right? And it's okay if it happens to somebody else. They always say the difference between a recession and a depression. A recession is when your neighbor loses their job, and a depression is when you lose your job. So when things affect you or affect the person you're dealing with, we kind of battle this thing called change. So as an organization and as a salesperson, we kind of deal with that on a daily basis. So what I wanted to do was kind of help put together a plan to kind of really focus and work through that. So to have a plan, you need to kind of have a plan. And what I have here is the first tip is let's have a growth plan for 2020. And when I'm talking growth plan, I personally, and I recommend, consider a personal and professional growth plan, right? Because right now we're close to the middle of January. Everybody said, oh, I'm going to diet, or I'm going to do this. And then in the middle of January, they're kind of back to their old habits, right? Did you commit to the plan? Right? And how do you commit to things? Well, you got to write it down and commit to it. Okay. So, a professional growth plan can be, maybe attend webinars or seminars, which you're obviously on this webinar. So good for you. That's a step in the right direction. Like I already checked one of my boxes. One of my goals for this year was to attend a seminar on sales, on increasing the pipeline and training. So I did that. And, and people say, Steve, you've been in sales for over 30 years, you still do that? I'm telling you, it's being a life learner. Okay, if when you stop growing, you become stale. And to help yourself move forward, you really need to have a mindset of creating a personal professional plan. Maybe read a book. 4 years ago, I was never a big reader. I said I'm going to commit to one book a day. Now I'm up to, one book a month. Now I'm up to 2 books a month. And then you have maybe get a mentor, somebody that you want to learn from. But you can kind of write these goals down. And if you ever listen to Grant Cardone, he wrote two of my favorite books, The 10X Rule and Sell or Be Sold. And he reviews his goals every morning. Now, I'm not at that level yet. I'm hoping to get there someday, but to update them and change them, right? To set to set the mindset of where you're going. And then, another way you can do is have scheduled review meetings either with your managers or maybe even your peers, just to kind of see how things are going. It's difference between a performance review, a growth plan review is just to kind of make sure you're on track and kind of, working together to get that. And the last thing I have here is getting uncomfortable. So if you're on the younger side of things, you're going to find out if you've never managed people or if you've never done this. And when you start something new, well, you've never done it. So you get uncomfortable, right? And the only way you can succeed and move forward is kind of do things you haven't done before to kind of get uncomfortable. So let's get to number 2. So, create a coaching culture. There's management and there's leadership, right? Management tells what to do. Leadership get people to follow them. And the coaching culture is what leads to leadership, right? And leadership sets the company culture. So I don't know if you're with a small organization, large organization, short sales process or a long sales process. But at the end of the day, it kind of comes from your leadership. But you can set your coaching culture, because I remember times where it was more of that management type of culture, and I found other people to help me grow, to do that. And I think one of the things that we're kind of seeing now is we're in this data dependent world. We have so much data. Everybody is addicted to Excel spreadsheets. And you simply cannot manage off a spreadsheet. You can decipher information, you can take the data to help you make good decisions, but you cannot see the quality of the activity on a spreadsheet. Okay, so if you're going to, if you're a sales manager, you want to coach your sales reps, you need to see them, because I've seen on CRM where people put the same thing in their activity and the results were completely different. And a coaching culture is really based on trust. And it is so important between the sales team members and the sales manager, okay, that everybody has everybody's back. The goal is to move deals forward and, as a team, right? So without trust, it doesn't go well. And the last point I have on here is that you need to understand that everyone can coach and be coached. I'm very fortunate here at Innovia. We have a lot of talent, a lot of great skill sets, and, might be able to help each other. Like, I don't understand that, tell me more about it. And you kind of coach or, and kind of help lead. And when you have that type of culture, you're going to really improve not only specifically yours, but your company sales results. So this is something that, you think of, is this sales related? And I think it is, because sales is passion driven. No one wants to really buy from somebody that's a glass half empty person, right? Hey, things are kind of slow. I got this deal. Will you buy from me? It doesn't work that well. So you want to kind of give yourself time to start the day. And I kind of said earlier, where it's a data dependent world, we have access to so much information. Okay. When you wake up in the morning, if you are rushing, it's just, you're starting that day off on what kind of note. And, years ago, someone said, I give myself at least 5 minutes. And then as I kind of got older and talked with people, the people that are really successful say, that first 10 minutes in the morning, that first 20 minutes is just wake up time, right? Clear the mind, not checking your phone for emails or text and I get it, everybody has different roles or traveling or what have you, but, to clear your mind for the day. And the 1 to 2 hour rule of waking up. So if you need to be at work at 8, maybe wake up at 6 or 7 to kind of get your mind straight and get set up, to get ready for the day. And younger people might find that harder because they, just kind of wake up and go. It's a fast-paced world. But I noticed that when I do that, it kind of sets the day, because it's really about, if we're talking about attitude, okay, that's a chance to step back and be happy, right? gratitude. It's something lacking so much today, right? So much negativity. When you can set the day with a tone of gratitude, that affects your attitude. And Zig Ziglar, I'll do a couple quotes from here. He says, attitude controls your altitude and where you're going. If you have that positive attitude, you're going to go after it today. You have a better chance versus, another day, right? It's the mindset of, do you get to go to work or do you have to go to work? So number 4, kind of getting more of the heart of selling is, you want to be a discovery king or queen. If you do a good job of discovery, you're going to be an elite salesperson. And if you're a sales manager, if you can help train your people, your team to ask good questions, the right questions, it'll go so well, because 80%, the 80-20 rule, reps just want to show up and throw up. Maybe you just got a new product and you just got trained on it and you're excited about it, and I get it. But when you go visit a customer or a prospect and you just start telling them all about it, I call that show up and throw up. And what does that get you, right? They might not even care about that. You might have missed an opportunity because you're just, you're so excited, or you're just talking about it and you kind of miss, that conversation, and we talk about here like discovery before demo and presentation. And I highlighted the always, because why? What do you want to see? Why do you want to see it? And then you can, by having good discovery, you're going to really get into the weeds a little bit more about what somebody wants to learn about or somebody wants to see. Because if you just start spewing out information and going over things, you might miss something, right? So by being that discovery king or queen and asking good questions, they're going to tell you what they're looking for and how to sell them, right? Because they're looking to see if you and your company are a fit with their company. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. A question might be ask what they want to get out of the conversation. Tell me about your pain points. Where would you like this conversation to go? We want to ask good open-ended questions. Which leads to number 5, just ask. Hundreds of salespeople I've worked with, if not over 1,000, ride-alongs, and work with as a sales trainer, and the amount of people that are afraid to ask. And I have to remind people, I got to remind myself on occasion that, what, if you're a salesperson, I think the person on the other end is expecting you to kind of ask, but we just kind of assume so much. So I'm going to ask you, are you able to remove the doubt, the maybes, right? Because in the sales pipeline, in CRM, when we move that across, research has shown that 80% of deals stall because there's no planned next step. So it's like having a conversation with somebody that was hard to get a hold of in the first place, right? And then when you have them in front of you or you're talking to them on the phone, you're like, oh, this is great. And then, okay, why don't you follow up with me in a month? Okay, goodbye. Well, now that person, you're trying to get a hold of them and you can't. Well, they were hard to get a hold of to begin with, right? Hi, Mr. Customer. Well, how about we hook up? You said a month. Well, how about on the 30th? Are you available at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? A lot of sales reps are afraid to ask that question because they might say, well, they're being pushy, or it removes the doubt, because the customer, if they say to you, I kind of know where I'm at, and I have at the bottom, micro commitments are needed, right? I want to know where I'm at in this process. Are we dancing or what are we doing? So if the deals stall, because you didn't ask, then we don't know. But if I rather know. So, Mr. Customer, what about the 30th? Well, Steve, I should know by then, but I'll follow up with you. Well, great. I know you're busy, Mr. Customer. How about we pull up your Outlook calendar? We can book it now. Because if they say yes, they're kind of telling you they're more committed to the process. If they're kind of pushing back on it, maybe there's something that we missed. But don't you want to know? I do. As a salesperson, a sales manager, I want to know where we're at. And the hardest thing to do is when you talk, and I'm not even close to this ratio. I'm trying to get close to half. But the shut up and listen part. When you ask a question, or when you're talking, you should be speaking a third of the time. The elite salespeople speak about a third of the time, right? And let the customer speak. We kind of get in back to that, right? We're going to be a masters of discovery. All right, number 6. I love talking about the numbers of selling. These are mind-boggling. Now, the data still supports it, that these are still similar in this world that we have, right? We have all these, email campaigns, all these things about CRM. But at the end of the day, half the salespeople don't even ask for the business. And yet these are the people that are representing your company for revenue, right? So it's that presentation mindset. Oh, we talked about this, we talked about that. Well, that's wonderful. What did they say? Are they in? Are they out? I don't know. And then you have only 50% of the salespeople, it's actually 49.5%, follow up at least one time. They just make one call. Oh, they never call me back, which is odd because if the data says 80% of all sales are made between the 5th and the 12th call, and less than 10% of the salespeople follow up more than 5 times, that's crazy. So if you're just persistent and call, you're going to be a very good salesperson. If you have a plan, a process, and you go after it, you're going to be an elite salesperson. But these numbers are profound. So we want to be that person that has a plan that follows up. One of the biggest things I hear from people that are looking at coming to Innovia is that no one calls me back, which as a salesperson, my mindset is don't be late and respect the person's time and call them back. So let's get into number 7 tip. This is really what salespeople do. And this is what your CRM should be built on. And we won't get into a heavy conversation about CRM. And even if you don't, should be the mindset, right? Create, advance, and close deals. That is the mindset of a salesperson. How can I hunt for new business? Either if it's a prospect or if it's a current customer. Okay. How can I advance this deal? Right? From hello, how you doing? Here's a fit. Here's a proposal. How you feel? Yes or no? Go on the next one. Okay. And one of the things that we kind of miss is, that don't ask, right? We don't want to just check in. And people make fun of me here at Innovia when we talk with the other members of my team because, to me, checking in is basically kind of a weak way of just, it's kind of wasting time, right? It's just kind of, it's not progressing the sale. And, every call needs to do one of these 2 things. We want to move the call forward, or we want to disqualify the opportunity or the prospect, right? If someone doesn't want to buy a refrigerator, they want to buy a stove, don't try to sell them a refrigerator, okay? So that kind of leads into having a process for each step of your opportunity. So I don't know if you have a short sales cycle or a long sales cycle. Hopefully you have enough information and done it enough to where you know how your process goes. And so, having a process isn't being a robot. Having a process helps guide this down the way. Because when you're going down your opportunities, you want to kind of, follow these steps. And some people might say, okay, I'm ready, and you skip steps. Well, great. Well, the process is to help you get there to kind of what? Create, advance, and close the deals. And you need to have a purpose and a plan, okay? Some salespeople are kind of like, well, they're kind of iffy on it or whatever. Hey, if there's a fit and your product solves a problem, you need to have that purpose and relay that to your customer. Tip number 8, the why are you different versus the why are you better. This is on this why are we better pitch. People to spin their wheels have been doing it for years, and I just don't get it because people want to know why are you different than the other 10 people that want my business? Why is your company different, right? So we need to understand our company strategy, kind of how we got started, what we sell, why we sell it, our culture, why you came to your company. Why does your company do this? How long? There's a story behind that and a strategy, right? That we want to convey to others. Because at the end of the day, when you get to that, why are you different versus why are you better? It helps you get to this. What I have the next one is what a lot of people miss. It is people over product and service. Okay. People don't care until they know how much you care. And if you're so focused on selling the product or service, you're missing the people side of things. All right. People make decisions. People write checks and POs. Okay. And we have to pay attention because people are different, right? You have type A, you have type B, you have safety people, you have aggressive people. And so, as we're engaging with them in having that conversation, we need to be cognizant of it. And lastly, on the why are you different, I have here is you need to have a story that they can repeat. I was told that the more you know about something, the less words you need to use to communicate it. And so if you need to have a simple story that if it's, because a lot of times the person that brought you to the dance in the company or the prospect you're dealing with is not the decision maker. And I know that surprises a lot of people, but it's over half. So that person now has to go to the decision maker and just basically give a recap of what you discussed with them. And so if they can't, because you're all over the place, it's not going to go well. So they need to have a repeatable story about why you're different and why your product can help them. So let's get to tip number 9, right? Just blow up the budget. And, to me, it just seems like everybody, that's beyond my budget. And for some reason, where we live at in the United States and North America, about 70 to 80% of projects are under budgeted. We have all these smart people thinking that, that's the budget. And now a lot of I'm a big Cubs fan. And if you look at the rebuild of Wrigley Field and the Ricketts family, they started this rebuild about 5 years ago, and they estimated about $600 million. Well, it's not done, and it's getting close to the final year, and they're over $1.1 billion. Okay, they went over $500 million over budget. Yet the president, Crane Kenny, has still got a job. I'm trying to think of how many organizations would, oh, you're gone, you went over budget by that. So, the mindset is that, they did their due diligence and thought that was enough, but to finish the job, they had to go over budget. And, I have here, forget about it, right? We tend to get so focused on numbers. And, let me ask you a question. Did you go over your budget on your car or your house? Right? Maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm going to spend $25,000. And where'd that number come from? I don't know, but everybody kind of picks a number. And then you realize, oh, it doesn't have what I need. And you're spending $35,000, but you got what you want. Well, you went over your budget. And, your house, most people I know, and, oh, I'm going to spend $250,000 on a house. And next thing you know, they spent $400,000 on a house. And I even have it on Christmas. So my wife and I, we did kind of do some envelopes, and I put all this money in an envelope. We're like, oh, we're perfect. Oh, wait a second. We don't have enough money. Oh, sorry, we can't buy them gifts because we're out of our money. So the reason I'm talking about this is that you hear these numbers and you kind of set that number in your mindset. Okay. And the reason I ask you to forget about it, because at the end of the day, does that product or service that you have solve a problem that they have? Okay. Is there enough pain that your service can help solve that problem to where they can see the benefit of it, all right? So just be cognizant of that and understand that's why they got banks. Okay, go get the money. You need this. Number 10, we're getting the halfway point. And the next 3 is start with the word own. Okay, and as a salesperson, you need to be the CEO of your territory. Doesn't matter if you're inside salesperson or outside. What you do, you need to own it. And if it doesn't go right, you have to accept responsibility. I know there's outside forces and things that happen, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be a successful salesperson and you want to rock and roll this year, you need to own it. And sales managers, they kind of need to own the activity of their sales team, right? And as you kind of learn, depending on what you sell, product, service, is that you probably have, so you've probably learned that, by doing this, it can lead to that. So specific activities can lead to specific results. Well, do you have an account plan, right? Are you putting in activities? Okay, are you putting in timelines to complete the activities? And you have complete control over that. Okay, you can't control revenue. You can't control if the buyer is going to say yes or no, but what you can control is the activity that you do to kind of lead and get to that. So we need to learn to master our activities through our pipeline to get us there. Okay, so let's get to number 11. Like I said, this one starts with the word own. Own your part of CRM. Okay, I do a lot of presentations on CRM, and it's more of like why it fails and what you can do to prevent it from failing. And at the end of the day, everybody it's a tool for people to use, but it needs to be built for the salesperson to create, advance, and close deals, right? That's kind of how it needs to be built, and then everything is secondary. So as a salesperson, your part is to kind of how do you use to learn that to help you close deals, and hopefully it's built that way. If it's not, you need to have a discussion, because you want to wake up in the morning when you fire up your computer, not only check your email, you want to check your activities, you want to check your CRM, you want to see your what your plan for the day is for each of your opportunities. Okay, and I put on here, be a beast when it comes to updating and owning it. And everybody kind of talks about the salespeople fight it, but the number one reason CRM fails is adoption. Who is it built for? Is it built to help the salespeople? But we need to kind of update our activities and stay on it. What I try to do is every Monday morning I get in a little early, got my whiteboard. I want to see things there. That way it helps motivate me to, to kind of, okay, get to my CRM and get things rocking and rolling. Everybody has a different way of doing it. And what I have here below that is understand that different stakeholders use it for different reasons. So as a salesperson, I want to use it to move deals. As a sales manager, I want to kind of see what the salespeople are doing, but also identify opportunities with the CRM, right? Because if somebody's bringing in lots of deals and they're not closing them, maybe they're, need some help coaching on closing. Or if you have somebody that's not putting a lot of deals and they're closing all of them, then either super salesman or they're sandbagging, right? So you can kind of identify that. And what I have, below here is utilize the 4 sales process of CRM. But getting back to the stakeholders, I said the sales manager wants to see it, but a lot of times leaderships want to look at CRM, and sometimes that's a different conversation. What I talk about is that if you want to use it for compliance and being big brother, it doesn't go well. But if you want to use it for coaching, you have a chance, right? But maybe supply chain, or people are looking to kind of see what's in the pipeline for other things. So what I have here is utilize the 4 sales processes of CRM, and I got a couple of them listed on the next one, which is own your sales process. Okay. There was a book that I've mentioned a few times called Cracking the Sales Management Code, and Jason Jordan is the author. And what they did is they looked at all the different metrics of businesses and all the different reports that they use, and there's over 300 metrics that companies would use to measure things. And they found out that a lot of the metrics, most of them were things beyond the control of a salesperson, right? They were more for measuring. And they decided that if you're going to measure something, the only reason you should measure something, and I was in complete agreement with this, is that it's something you can improve. You can kind of have control over. Okay. So the one thing that we talked about here is activities. And you have control of your activities. And I have this 3-step process that it took me a while to understand. And as I reviewed more data and talked to more people, there's 3 parts of it. The pre-planning. So if you're getting ready to go into a sales call, why are you going in? What are you going to talk about? But you can go back now and look at the notes, hopefully, if you put notes in, of what you did in the past to kind of see where maybe their pain points were or where you're at. So you can actually do what most salespeople should do is a sales call. Okay, you execute the sales call. But really what I have here on debrief is what a lot of salespeople don't, and what they're missing is the debriefing of that sales call, right? The notes, who I talked with, what did I talk with about, what's my next step? Or they're able to debrief it on a pipeline meeting if you have them weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever. Okay, so we need to own that part of it if you're a salesperson, and sales managers need to hold the salesperson accountable, which leads to opportunities, which are basically multiple activities in a single account. Okay, because you want to kind of to have clarity, you want to really be able to say, okay, I have an opportunity for this. Okay, my brother sells appliances. So let's say he was working with an apartment complex that wanted to buy refrigerators. Well, realizing that the refrigerator needs now, but that they bought stoves maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe starts creating an opportunity for that on what's the next step to do for that, right? Focus on this one and then do the activities, but also create a plan, have a multiple activities for this single account. So as you're doing that, you can create the most value and best fit solution for your client because you're really interacting with them, okay? Because that's at the end of the day, we're trying to help them solve their problems, right? But also plant seeds on what we can do to help them solve their problem. And the last thing I have here on own your sales process is, we always talk about hoops. And when people aren't interested, they'll run you through hoops, or they don't know how to ask you the right questions. Because as a salesperson, I got asked so many times to do things. I'm like, what? And we tend to want to help people, but we need to be cognizant of stopping requests that don't help you and your client get the end result, right? Close a deal. Because when I talk with salespeople, if your product is a fit, okay, and for a fact they need it, if you don't close the deal, what value did you provide to that client? Really not much. Maybe you created a shopper, I don't know. But the only time you're going to provide value is when you help them achieve their goal. So let's get to number 13. Corporate clone or what? So, one thing I've noticed when I talk to a lot of large organizations is that they have this mindset that salespeople are all the same. And and they would, if they follow this process, they try to make cookie cutters, then that'll be the way to go. And what I have on here is that's the wrong answer. Why is it the wrong answer? Because sales is passion driven. Okay, you are dealing with people, emotions are high, emotions play a role, and it's hard to replace experience. And you gain experience a lot of times by what? By doing the wrong thing and learning from it, right? From, oop, that was a mistake, not gonna do that again. And if you keep putting this like mindset, and CRM is really, I wouldn't say at fault for it, but has led to, I think, a lot of this, that if you do this, this, and this, and this, then, go on to the next one. You get into that check the box mindset. Okay. And I was talking with somebody that when I was with the pharma company, there was this rep that, he's kind of arrogant, and I really, he was hard to figure out, but man, the doctors love this guy. Internally, no one really liked the guy, right? But he just been there so long, did such a good job, and he just would challenge everybody internally on it. But you know what? He sold things. So what would you rather have? Somebody that was a top performer, or somebody that you try to train that couldn't probably get half the business? So like I have here below, if you have a process in place and everyone follows it, then shouldn't the results be the same if you're trying to clone people? If that's the case, then why do we have some salespeople that sell 4 to 5 times more than other salespeople? So beware of trying to make cookie cutter salespeople. If you're a sales manager or if you're a salesperson, you need to learn your own way of selling. Which leads to this, following the straight line method. So if you ever saw the Wolf of Wall Street movie, there's a guy, his name's Jordan Belfort, who basically got arrested. He taught these young guys, he called them Stratonites, and how to sell low dollar stocks to millionaires. Okay. And, when I first read the book, one of the things that kind of stood out to me, and it kind of changed the way that I would think, because we always talk in sales that every sale is different. Well, he says every sale is the same. And I'm like, well, how can every sale be the same? People are different. And it really kind of got to the mindset of that people follow a straight line, right? They need to want or need your product or service, that it's going to help them solve their problem or their need and get them to where they want to go, right? And if you can't get past that, then you have no sale. And the next one is you, all right? They need to trust you and view you as a trusted advisor, that you're an expert in your field and that you know what you're talking about. And then really your company, okay? Is your company who they say they are, right? Are they respected in the industry, okay? Do they have a high level of integrity? And the point where it got to different is that everybody has a different level of certainty. All right. Some people only need 70% to make a yes decision or a no decision. Right. Then you got some people that they want more, right? And I need to know more about your product. I want you to get into the weeds a little bit more. Now, tell me a little bit more about you, then maybe 80 or 90. And when you get to those people that are over 90, like 95%, they're just mostly miserable people that they're never going to change for anybody. But so the mindset of once you follow that straight line method is that, we need to kind of complete that cycle and make sure before we go on the next one that they're all set. Because seriously, if they're not, if your product or service is not a fit, there's no reason to try to sell it, right? So that's a book I'd recommend also. And I think this tip right here is where a lot of salespeople miss the boat. All right. Do you see yourself as a value creator? Seriously, right? If the prospect truly needs your product or service after you kind of went to that straight line that we talked about, then you're really not a pest. And, one of the things that somebody told me a long time ago, which I was sharing with somebody, is that, just because as a salesperson, you call somebody and you call them again and you call them again, they don't owe you a call back. They don't, right? So don't get upset with the customer. Don't get upset with the prospect. Okay. And you never know what's going on, because everybody has stories. Oh yeah, about 6 months later, they call me back up. Well, you stayed on it. You were persistent on it, because I want you to view yourself as a professional problem solver. Because especially if you are in a large cycle or complex sale, you have different layers of people, right? You have customers that are easy to deal with. You have customers that are hard to deal with. You have a person over in this department. You have a person over in that department. Okay. And so a lot of time it's putting a strategy together to get people together and help solve problems. Okay. And, and when I talked earlier about one of the books by Grant Cardone called the 10X rule, is that you need to pursue relentlessly because your motivation is pure. If we have agreed and seen a fit between our product and service that can help you, you have now earned the right, okay, to stay on the prospect or the customer to move forward with your product or service, okay, until it's proven otherwise. Because, I was sharing a story. I wanted to buy some life insurance. And this person I've known for years, I called him about 3 years ago, and he emailed me six times and 2 phone calls over a year. I just put it off, and finally, when I talked with him, I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry," and it's kind of against what I'm talking about here, but that kind of what happened. But he stayed on it because his motivation was pure. I reached out to him, I needed it, I wanted it, and so he stayed with it, and good for him. So this is a fun one right here, right? Always agree, and this one, people will challenge me on it. And what I mean by always agree, like what are you talking about? Is that if the person thinks the water's cold and you think the water's hot, you can agree with them that they see that the water's cold. Because what happens is if you don't, you kind of get into this principle versus positional battle, right? Because if you say, oh no, the water's hot, now they're going to try to convince you that their viewpoint is the way it is, and you see it the wrong way. Okay, so it's the mindset of always agreeing with of the mindset is that, look, I see how you see it this way, right? I get it, and you might have data or whatever to support how they see it wrongly, but until they go from their way of seeing it to your way, you don't have a chance, right? So how do we get to a common ground if one is right and one is wrong? It's hard to. And a lot of times maybe they just see it one way, and then after you have a deeper conversation of that discovery, oh, that makes sense, then it can get there. But if you don't set that up front, you really don't have a chance for continuing that conversation. So let's get to number 17, a couple more to go. All right, be a person of excellence, right? And I got another Zig Ziglar quote here. You can get everything in life that you want if you help enough people get what they want. If your motivation is pure and you're helping some company, somebody to solve problems, right? If we put the person first over the product or the service, right? We go out of our way to help them achieve their goals. Man, beautiful things happen because you have this law of reciprocity, right? One of the greatest elements of human nature is to be fair. You think of little kids, right? The fighting, right? If somebody takes something from another one, they want to get even. So it can work both ways. But when you go out of your way and help somebody, I want you to think there's probably somebody that did something nice for you that's kind of out of the blue, and you're like, boy, that was so nice. I want to do something nice for them. And it's not to be manipulative or controlling. It's just really just a way of trying to pay somebody back that are helping you, right? And when you're a person of excellence and you take care of people, you want to be transparent, responsive, and have that positive attitude. That I cannot stress how far that goes in a relationship. Everybody loves a young person that hustles, even an older person that hustles, right? You want to out hustle your competition, right? I've had to use this a few times. Don't confuse my enthusiasm for what I'm doing with being pushy, because hey, let's get going. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's do this, right? Because you just see why they can't use the product, right? And I always tell people that you should be sold on your product to the point where you're irrational. That if someone's not using your product or service, that you just can't accept it. Because once you agreed upon that it is, we got to that straight line, right? Everybody has a different threshold, a level before they take action. And for some reason, some people will, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, yeah, that was past. Now we're talking future. Okay, we need to take a look at this, because I was talking with somebody about my water heater. I got a 25-year-old water heater. Okay, so I'm on borrowed time. And so a friend of mine, he fixes and repairs them, and he made a comment to me, and I'm like, I said, they don't make them like this anymore. If I buy a new one, they're built to last 7 to 8 years, where the older ones are built to last forever. And he goes, well, I get it, but it's 25 years old, so what happens if it breaks? So he gave me the reality of the situation. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but there's not enough fear of pain for me yet. Obviously, I'm going to be doing it this summer, however, to do that. So, but it's that mindset. And in a world of so few sales professionals, if you have a plan and follow your sales process and follow up, you will be the one that stands out and people want to buy from. So let's get into number 19 here. Fit or no fit? And I think a lot of salespeople miss this, right? Because if your company and solution is a best fit product for them, then you have the right to ask for the business. If it's not a fit, then you have a responsibility to help them find somebody that is a fit, right? Because I know like we sell NAV and BC, and we don't sell Dynamics for sales for CRM, and that comes up quite a bit. But we know a company that we feel their values are aligned with us, that we kind of recommend them to. Say, hey, I got somebody else here if you're interested. Try to take them to somebody versus, hey, good luck with that, right? Because sometimes I've had people that I've done that to and said, can't help you here. Let me try to help you find somebody. But then, hey, maybe a referral came a year later. We don't know. And I think where salespeople too get so focused, when I talked about that show up and throw up, they just talk about the product. We need to stop, take a step back. Right? We want to sell the problem we solve, not the product. Okay, that is so important, right? Because your product might be similar to some other product that your competition has, but when you maybe present it or service or support it differently than your competition, and you might solve that problem, because one thing that's lacking as we go forward is talent. And some people don't have enough of it, or some people don't have a process to take care of people. So we want to sell the problem that we solve. So I'm coming to the last tip here, number 20, and this is something that I think a lot of salespeople lack. Something I work on consistently is you want to confirm that the customer or prospect is tracking with you, okay? Especially in the later stages of your sales cycle, okay? Because like I said earlier, it's like those micro commitments. I want to know where we're at. So if I'm following a straight line process, if they're sold on the product, all right, if they're sold on me or the company, and there's a stall, okay, maybe there's something we didn't address, okay? So if we're kind of confirming with the customer, are you with me? Like, I'm not kind of there. Well, that's the time to flush out any objections before we try to close, right? And you want to fix it, because if you do a good job of discovery, the close becomes secondary, all right? And then, we want to confirm, did I answer your question, Mr. Customer? Absolutely, okay. Then, okay, how about we do this, right? Here's the next step. Are you with me, right? I don't want to have that doubt, the kind of maybe. I want to know, where are we at, yes or no? And if they're not to the next step, maybe it's not something you're doing, maybe it's something on their point, but we want to kind of know. I want to know where we're at, Mr. Customer. Everything we've talked about, sounds like you're ready to go and you're not ready to go. Can you mind if I ask you, so where are we at? Well, we're kind of here. Okay, what does it take to get you here? And that's a fair question, right? Sometimes they might not know. I've been in organizations that they had so many different decision makers. I had a company tell me that they were ready to buy, but they didn't know who in the organization was able to do the purchasing, right? Because there's so many layers of that company. But we want to confirm and where the customer's at. All right, so that is the 20 tips for 2020. Hopefully you felt that you got something out of it. And Angie, I want to open up for questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. We have no questions for you today, but if anybody does have any, please feel free to contact us or your account manager at your company, and we can see what we can do to get those answered for you.
Wonderful. So if you want to reach out to me, here's my contact information. I'm also on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and you can go to our website and there's information on that. And Angie, I don't know if you want to talk about our upcoming events.
Yes, I will. So I just want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today, and thank you to Steve for you for presenting. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there. We do have a few more webinars coming soon. January 21st, we have Marguerite Minelski from Innovia Consulting, and she's going to be presenting on data management for purchasing. And then on January 22nd, we have Bryce Menadu, and he's also from Innovia Consulting. He's going to be presenting on a continued series on Hello Extensions, creating and structuring your first extension. That'll be part 1. And check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. We're always updating new webinars and events that will be taking place. And if you haven't heard yet, Innovia has a podcast that is going on. It's called the Innovia Conversation. And Steve is actually one of our hosts for our podcast episodes. So you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page. And that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. All right, well, again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.